Do you want to learn a simple cheat engine trick to create elegant cheat tables for any game that can modify resources, stats, and almost anything else? In this video, I'll teach you how, and we'll be using the Binding of Isaac as an example. So without further ado, let's turn on Cheat Engine, turn on the game, and get right into it. I'm going to start a new game, and right off the bat, what do we see? That's right, a number. And as a matter of fact, it's a number we can change quite easily. Now I know what you're thinking. Yeah, you're gonna search for the number and change it. Real goddamn profound, dude. I know. But just trust me on this one, we're gonna do something a lot cooler. But for now, let's use an exact 4-byte search. You're gonna look for 1 since we have 1 bomb. Then you're gonna either find more bombs or use your bomb by pressing E and search for the new value. Rinse and repeat till you're left with 1 value. Let's go ahead and add it to our cheat table and modify it to see if we found the right one, and we did. If you're applying this to some other game, then just search for something you can change really easily, so like a stat, a resource, even the player's X or Y position on the screen could work. And if you don't find it at first, try other data types and try other search types. Now that you found your value, shit's about to get real, so pay attention, boy. Go ahead and right-click your value and hit Find Out What Writes to This Address. Then hit Yes. Now this is going to open up a window that's going to show us all the code that changes our value. Check out this code that popped up when I used a bomb. This is the line in the code that changes the number of bombs we have in a greater function that's run every time we use a bomb. Now let's take a closer look at this code, specifically the part at the end that says EDI plus 000012B4. If you see something that follows this pattern with EDI or ESI or EAX plus some number, then you hit the jackpot. EDI contains a pointer to our player's base address, and that number is an offset from the player's base address where our bombs are being stored. This is the trick we're going to use to make our cheat table. We're going to get the player's base address, and we're going to use that to get other stats and resources. Everything related to the player is just some unique offset away from the player's base address. So that's what we're really after, is that base address. And since the offsets don't change, our cheat table is going to work even if we restart the game. So go ahead and select this line and click Show Disassembler. Then up here, click Tools, Auto Assemble, Template, and AOB Injection. Then just hit OK on all these pop-ups. What this is going to do is it's going to hook onto the game's existing code. Now remember, this is the code that runs whenever we use a bomb. Since the player's base address is being accessed in this line of code, we can write in our own code to get the address for ourselves. Let's make a custom variable. I'm going to call it player ID. In assembly, to do this, we have to allocate space for our variable. We're going to do this with the global alloc keyword. Then you put the name of your variable, player ID, comma, the number of bytes you want to allocate, in this case 4. Then we're going to set this variable equal to whatever is in EDI, which remember is a pointer to the player's base address. Then go ahead and assign your script to the cheat table. Yup, that's it. 2 lines of code is all you need. Where's the player ID? Well, you gotta add the address manually, just like this. Make sure you type the name exactly right and you've got it set to 4 bytes. I'm going to put it on top of my script and change the name to player ID, and I'm going to change the script's name to get player ID. Now right now you're going to notice the player ID is 0, and that's because we haven't enabled our script yet, so let's do that. Okay, perfect. Now remember, the script is only going to run when we use a bomb, so let's go in the game and use a bomb. And there it is. It's a number now. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope you No, I'm joking. Let's actually do something with this now. First of all, we actually have to tell Cheat Engine that this is a pointer. So I'll go ahead and double click the address and select this. Alright, beautiful. Now it's giving us an option to add an offset to our pointer. Right now, by default, it's 0. So it's just pointing directly at the player ID. So we're going to have to change that offset if we want to access more useful stuff. If you remember from before, the offset of our bombs was 12B4. I'm going to go ahead and copy paste the player ID. Then with the new one here, I'm going to change the offset to 12B4. If you did everything right, the value should now be the number of bombs you have, and as you can see, it is. Hell yeah. Now I know what you're thinking. We did all this goddamn work just so we could give ourselves more bombs? Like we could already do that before. The benefit of doing it this way though, is that this is gonna work even if you restart the game. Not only that, but now that we have the player ID, we can access a lot of other stuff that would otherwise be pretty hard to find. For example, if you copy paste the bombs like I did and change the pointer by a little bit, you're gonna see a value that says 0. Let's go ahead and change this and see what happens. Boom, now we can change our coins too. Was this just dumb luck that the coins happened to be right next to the bombs? Well, actually no. By virtue of the way the code is structured, it's actually very, very likely that related resources and stats are going to be right next to each other in memory. For example, let's go forward a few more. Let's change this, and this is going to be our keys, and never mind. God damn. Well, sometimes if you want to go forward, you got to go backwards first. So let's go ahead and decrease the offset. Found another value that's 0, let's change it, and boom, magic, right? Now we've got a pointer to our keys. How about stats? Let's try to change our damage now. This one's a little harder, but we can use the developer console to spawn an item to increase our damage for us real quick. This is going to make it a lot easier to search for it. But if you want, you could also play through the game naturally and find items that increase your damage. If you don't know how to enable the developer console, it's pretty simple. You can just do a Google search. It'll take probably a few minutes. Anyways, let's search for 3.50, which is our damage right now. Remember to change your value type to float, because now we're searching for a decimal rather than an integer. Let's go ahead and pick up the item, search for our new damage. Okay, now we're left with 3, so let's just change them manually and see which one changes our damage. And there we go, I found it. Alright, perfect. Now we're going to do the same thing we did with our bombs before. We're going to go ahead and right-click the value and find out what writes to it. Okay, then finally we're going to pick up one more item that changes our damage. And what do you see there? That's right, another offset. This time it's 13B8. Let's copy paste one of our other pointers. I'm going to do the keys, and let's change the offset to 13B8. But uh-oh, the value doesn't look like the amount of damage we have, does it? Well, you gotta remember we're dealing with floats now, not integers. So we have to change the type to a float. Alright, now try changing it, and it should change your damage. Beautiful. Now remember what we did before with the bombs? We just copy pasted it and changed the offset a little bit to find our other resources. You can do the same thing to find other stats. Just look for the values that match one of your stats. Even if it's not a number you recognize, it's actually pretty fun to just change random stuff. Because sometimes you'll actually find something useful just by chance. Like I managed to make my tiers do this. Eventually I managed to find the pointer for my shot speed, my range, the elevation my tiers spawned at, the force of gravity on my tiers. And I could probably find a whole lot of other stuff too if I spent more time on it, which I encourage you to do because it's pretty fun. But anyways, now we've got our cheat table, and I guarantee you this method will work for the majority of other single player games. So go ahead and try it on other ones. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you learned anything or enjoyed this video, let me know, and peace out.